40 years, the M1 Abrams wasn't just a tank. It was a statement. It was 70 tons of America has arrived, and you are about to lose. It was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, brushing off RPGs in Iraq and crushing the Soviet-made armor of the Republican Guard like they were toys. But in 2023, the U.S. Army did something that stunned the defense industry. They didn't just announce a new upgrade. They effectively admitted that the current path was a dead end. They abruptly canceled the M1A2 SEP V4 program, a tank that was already in development, and threw the blueprints in the trash. Why? Because the world changed while we weren't looking. The war in Ukraine has peeled back the curtain on the future of combat, and it is a nightmare for heavy armor. We are watching multi-million-dollar war machines being hunted to extinction by $500 drones. We are watching the era of invincibility through armor crumble in real time. So, the Army hit the panic button. They are fast-tracking a radical, terrifyingly different concept, the M1E3. This isn't an upgrade. This is a resurrection. They want to slash the weight, gut the engine, fire the loader, and hand controls over to AI. But is this the bold revolution we need, or a desperate, tech-heavy gamble that could leave American crews exposed? To understand why the Army killed the SEP V4, you have to look at a number that scares logisticians more than enemy fire: 73 tons. That is the combat weight of the current modern Abrams. Over the last 4 decades, we have treated the tank like a Christmas tree, hanging more armor, more sensors, and more guns on it. But we never upgraded the suspension or the chassis to handle it. The result? The Abrams is obese. Let's be brutally honest about the logistics here. At 73 tons, the Abrams cannot cross a significant percentage of bridges in Eastern Europe. If we needed to rush a brigade to defend Poland or the Baltics, our tanks would have to stop at every river crossing and wait for engineering units to build a pontoon bridge, because the local infrastructure would crumble under their tracks. That isn't a tactical inconvenience. That is a strategic failure. And it's not just bridges. It's the recovery vehicles. If a 73-ton tank gets stuck in the mud, and it will get stuck, you need 2 heavy recovery vehicles to pull it out. You are bogging down the entire offensive because your lead asset is too heavy to move. The Army realized that if they added even more weight with the SEP V4 upgrade, they wouldn't have a main battle tank anymore. They would have a main battle bunker that couldn't leave the parking lot. Enter the M1E3. The mandate is ruthless: get under 60 tons. This is the first major conflict in the design. To drop nearly 15 tons of weight, you have to sacrifice something. You can't just wish the weight away. Do you strip the armor? Do you shrink the gun? This is the engineering crisis at the heart of the new program. The Army claims they can do it through integrated designs and advanced materials, but physics is a harsh mistress. We are about to see a tank that reverses 40 years of bigger is better doctrine. If the weight is the body, the engine is the soul. And for the Abrams, that soul has always been the Honeywell AGT 1500 gas turbine. It is a jet engine in a tank. It produces massive torque, and it is arguably the best tank engine ever made for 1990. But in 2026, it's a liability. Here is the dirty secret of the Abrams. It drinks fuel even when it is idling. A turbine engine is incredibly inefficient when the tank is sitting still. And in modern war, you spend a lot of time sitting still, watching, waiting, scanning. In Ukraine, we learned a bloody lesson. Logistics is a target. The Ukrainians struggle to keep their Western tanks fueled because fuel trucks are soft targets. If you can't get 300 gallons of JP8 to the front line every day, your 70-ton monster turns into a paperweight. The Abrams short range and high thirst mean it is on a very short leash. The M1E3 is going to rip that turbine out. General Dynamics is moving to a hybrid diesel-electric power pack. This is not about being green or saving the polar bears. This is about lethality. A hybrid system solves 2 massive problems. First, range. A diesel-electric system is vastly more fuel efficient. Estimates suggest the M1E3 could have 50% greater range than the current fleet. That means it can operate deeper behind enemy lines, for longer, with less support. It untethers the beast. Second, and this is the cool part, silent watch. Imagine an Abrams sitting in a defensive hull-down position. Currently, it has to run a loud auxiliary power unit or the main engine to keep the thermal sights and computers running. It glows on thermal cameras like a bonfire. With the M1E3, you switch to battery mode. The engine cuts. The heat signature vanishes. The noise drops to zero. But the sensors, the turret drive, and the communications are still 100% active. It transforms a tank from a roaring brawler into a silent assassin. You can sit in an ambush for hours, cold and invisible, waiting for the enemy T-90 to roll past. And then bam, you start the fight on your terms. This technology has been proven on the Abrams X demonstrator, and it is a game changer for survivability. Now we get to the most controversial part of this new tank. The Army is getting rid of the loader. For decades, the U.S. Army argued that a human loader was superior. A mechanism breaks. They said, a private first class adapts. A human loader is also an extra set of eyes for maintenance, an extra rifle for security, and a morale boost. But the M1E3 is almost certainly going to feature an auto loader. Why the sudden change of heart? Did we stop loving our troops? No, we started looking at the physics of survival. To drop weight and increase protection, you need to shrink the tank. The biggest volume in a tank is the space needed for a human to stand up and throw a 50-pound shell into a gun breech. If you remove the human, you can flatten the turret. You can make the tank 20% smaller. Smaller target equals harder to hit. But there's a deeper issue here. The ammunition is changing. The Army is moving toward longer, heavier sabot rounds to penetrate next-gen Chinese and Russian armor. These rounds are getting too heavy for a human to load quickly and reliably in a bouncing tank during combat. A robot doesn't get tired, scared, and doesn't fumble around because a tank hit a ditch. But here is the risk, and it is a big one. Russian tanks use autoloaders. We have all seen the turret toss videos where the ammo carousel ignites and blows the turret into the stratosphere. The U.S. engineers have to figure out how to build an autoloader that feeds the gun but keeps the ammo separated from the crew. If the mechanism jams in the middle of a firefight, you can't just kick it. You are essentially disarmed. This is a massive gamble on mechanical reliability over human redundancy. This leads us to the radical redesign of the crew compartment. If you delete the loader, what do you do with the gunner and commander? The current plan points to an unmanned turret. The crew of 3 will likely sit side by side in the hull, protected by the thickest armor on the ship in a reinforced capsule. This is a direct response to the horror we are seeing in Ukraine. Right now, if a turret gets penetrated, the crew is right there with the explosives. It is a death trap. By moving the humans out of the turret, you decouple the crew from the gun. The turret can be hit, it can burn, it can be blown off, and the crew might still walk away. This is the Citadel concept. We have talked about engine efficiency and crew comfort, but how does this thing stop a missile? In the past, the answer was add more steel. Today, steel is useless against a Javelin missile diving from the top. The M1E3 is banking everything on active protection systems. This isn't an add-in, it's the skin of the tank. Think of it as a personal Iron Dome for the tank. Radars constantly scan the perimeter. When an RPG or a guided missile is detected, the computer calculates the trajectory and fires a counter-munition to detonate the threat mid-air, meters away from the hull. The M1E3 will integrate this into the chassis, likely prioritizing top coverage. The cope cages we see on Russian tanks are acts of desperation. The U.S. wants a high-tech solution, a radar that looks up and a shotgun that shoots up. But there is a catch. Energy. APS systems drain power. Electronic warfare systems drain power. That new hybrid engine is going to be working overtime. Furthermore, APS works against missiles. Does it work against a solid tungsten dart traveling at Mach 5 fired from another tank? No. If the M1E3 sheds too much armor to save weight, and the APS fails or runs out of ammo, or gets overwhelmed by a swarm of cheap drones, the tank is naked. We are betting that we can shoot the arrow out of the air rather than building a shield that can stop it. That is a doctrinal shift that should make every tanker nervous. Finally, we have to look at the brain. The M1E3 isn't designed to be a lone wolf. It's designed to be a quarterback. The XM1147 Smart Ammo allows the tank to program shells to explode in the air above trenches. The data links will allow the tank to launch its own reconnaissance drones to look over the next hill. The vision is for the M1E3 to spot a target, and instead of firing its own gun, it designates a target for a robot wingman or an artillery battery 20 miles away. It moves from being a blunt instrument to a precision node. So, what does this all add up to? The M1E3 Abrams is not just an old tank with new parts. It represents a fundamental shift in American armored doctrine. By drastically reducing its weight while rebalancing the classic triangle of firepower, mobility, and protection, the Army is creating a tank that is more lethal, more survivable, and critically, more sustainable on the transparent battlefields of the future. The accelerated timeline is ambitious, and challenges certainly remain. Integrating a new hybrid engine, an unmanned turret, and an autoloader into a proven platform is a massive engineering undertaking. But the urgency is clear. The age of the seemingly invincible super heavy tank is over. The future of armor warfare belongs to the platforms that are smarter, faster, and more adaptable. If the U.S. Army and General Dynamics can deliver on their promises, the M1E3 won't just be an upgrade. It will be the rebirth of the Abrams for a new era of war.